This is Walt Disney World Today. Give us 5 minutes and we'll give you the world.
It's Monday, August 24th, 2009, and this is episode 608 of WDW Today. I'm Matt Hochberg of StudioCentral.com. Joining me on today's show is Len Testa, co-author of the Initial Guide to Walt Disney World. And Len, I discovered something at Walt Disney World over the weekend, and I need to know if this is just me or everyone else knew this. In Spectra Magic, you're familiar with the Chernabog float?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The Chernabog float, for those who, he comes down the street, and he's like, by default, he's like closed up. And then his wings expand, and, he shows himself, right? I thought, until this weekend, that Chernabog when his wings open, only one side of the street sees him. And I always thought that over the years I had been lucky and always picked the right side of the street to be on to see Chernabog. But evidently, I learned he's on both sides. It's a mirror image on both sides. Did you know that?
No, I didn't, but I'm kind of scared that you do now. How did you figure this out? Did you run across the street in front of the parade?
No, someone told me, and then
Okay. So let me change my answer. They're totally lying to you, Matt. They're totally
like
lying to you.
Right?
They're jealous. Yeah, exactly. It is just for you.
I know. I always thought I was lucky and had
You're
the right side
special.
of the street.
You're special.
Well,
didn't your parents always, and your teachers and your school bus driver always tell you you're special?
That's right. The school bus driver especially.
Exactly.
Also joining us on today's show is the senior feature writer and blogger for allears.net. It's Mike Scopa. Welcome, Mike.
Matt, you are about to discover what lies beyond the fifth dimension, beyond the deepest, darkest corner of your imagination in...
The Tower of Terror.
Correct.
Exactly the same in Disneyland Paris, by the way, but in French. Rod Serling is still cool in French, by the way.
Nice.
And dead. And my dad.
Still dead. Dead and loving it, right? Also joining us on today's show, we have a special panelist with us today. It's John Frost, who's the author of The Disney Blog, which is online at www.thedisneyblog.com. Welcome to the show, John.
Hi, thanks for having me. And today I'm celebrating the start of school tomorrow, which also means the return of our parks to the locals. Yay!
It's so weird to have kids go back to school. I mean, it's relatively early. I mean, up north, it's un-American to go to school before Labor Day. So
I know.
But down here in Florida's not really the South, but you know what I mean. Yes, kids back in school. So rejoice, all you people who go to the parks on Wednesdays. And we brought John on to talk about. Some people look back.
They're called unemployed. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, most people look back on the year's events in December, right around New Year's. But we said, nah, come on, that's hack. The new way to look back on the year is in August, right before the kiddies go back to school. So we brought John on to talk about what the big news have been, the biggest topics really that have crossed paths of everyone here in 2009 as it relates to Walt Disney World. And John, when you look back on 2009 thus far, it's been 8 months and some change now. What's really stood out to you as probably the biggest story that's come out this year as it relates to Walt Disney World?
The biggest story by far is it's the economy, Goofy.
Nice.
It's really the number one driver of what's going on in the parks for visitors and employees.
Yeah, I think it's the story of everything, but I think how the economy is affecting the parks, I think, is a big story. Len, when we're talking about the economy, what have you seen in terms of how the economy has affected the parks?
I think probably the major thing right now is if you look at Disney's projected hotel occupancy from now until the end of the year, they're projecting to be down 7% versus 2008 on if you look at calendar by calendar, day by day basis. The way Disney does their fiscal year, there's an extra week in their fiscal calendar this year versus last year. So taking that out, they're down 7%, which is amazing when you think about what might have been in the spring and the early summer had they not had all those discounts like buy 4 get 7 and free dining later on. How bad things could have been.
Right.
It's really kind of scary.
Now, John, you obviously have run a number of stories over the year. We had the management layoffs a little earlier in the year, the different numbers that come out, like Len mentioned, the 7%, and some other numbers from Disney corporate. What's been the reaction that you've seen from your readers at the Disney blog in terms of what they, what are their feelings on the economy and how it's affected the parks?
I think all of them. It hasn't really changed their plans for anybody that planned to come to visit the park, but they may be coming for fewer days or waiting till the last minute to make their bookings. And I'd say the number one thing people have noticed is just how lightly staffed the parks are, which in turn makes the parks
That's a
seem
really
much more
kind way of
crowded.
saying that. Lightly staffed. That's good. That's good. It's not bad.
Fewer cast members, longer lines.
Yes.
That's true. What about offsite? Have the offsite hotels been?
Yeah, if you're not a Disney hotel, you're hurting a lot these days. There was just a story in the Sentinel the other day that one hotel is now offering $10 a night rooms.
Really?
What hotel is that?
Super 8 either. It was
Matt's house.
yeah.
That's right. I'm running a special.
Hotspur. What hotel? Yeah, right.
What hotel? Oh, you're going to ask me to remember what hotel. It was formerly one of those hotels that formerly was a timeshare and converted to a hotel up by SeaWorld. I don't remember the name.
Oh, okay. So a decent distance away from
Right,
from the parks, but still $10 a night. Jesus.
$10 a night.
Yeah, you
Book
can't beat
3 nights. You had to book 3 nights, but still, it's a pretty good deal.
That's a great
Even
deal.
if you're staying for one night. What the heck?
Okay, so the economy, obviously the big story here, John. What else has really grabbed the attention of your readers?
Well, kind of related to the economy, I think, was the Pleasure Island stagnation and the general closing of all the stores in downtown Disney and potential, what's going to be happening there. You
Yeah.
get lots of people asking about that.
Yeah, it's a real ghost town over there. I mean,
Oh yeah.
compared to, obviously compared to what it used to be, but really, there's Raglan Road. Now there's the that new restaurant. What is it, Paradiso 37? Or it's not a restaurant, right?
Yeah, it's a restaurant,
Yeah.
but mostly tequila bar,
Yeah, tequila
which
bar.
seems to be a theme these days.
Wait, you're saying that like it's a bad thing.
I'm not saying it's a bad thing.
Just
Okay.
tequila.
All right. Just checking. Okay.
What have your readers said? Have they also noticed that it's just a ghost town? Are they more eager for any news on what could possibly be coming there?
Yeah, I think they're looking for a reason to go to downtown Disney, and not they're not finding anything new. So, unless you're looking for that last minute shopping item,
Right.
there's no reason to take the bus all the way out there.
Yeah, I mean, we obviously just talked about Pleasure Island, and don't forget, I mean, the West Side has been really marginalized. I mean, now Virgin's gone from over there.
Yeah.
There's some people enjoy some of the food over there, like the Express of oh my god,
Wolfgang Puck.
Wolfgang Puck. Thank you.
Yeah.
But I mean, really, other than the marketplace, which John just said, I mean, really, downtown Disney's role in terms of prominence, I think, is greatly diminished.
Yeah, they might need actually to start over on that section by section. We think the West Side, Pleasure Island, and then the rest of the marketplace. There's nothing that differentiates, and anything there that you can't get online or anywhere else. I guess that's more of a commentary on the economy, on the retail in general. But I mean, really, what there is super interesting.
Well, I was going to
Nothing.
say, I think.
Raglan Road is actually, but
Yeah, go ahead, John.
All right, what I was going to say is, I think Disney is not even sure what they want to do, as evidenced by the recent vice president roulette table switch with Kevin Lansbury going to Animal Kingdom and Val Bunting going to a hotel, and then even before that, we had the Jim McPhee and Dan Cockrell switcheroo.
Right.
So Disney, I think, is they're interested in shaking things up, and moving around all those vice presidents is part of that.
yeah, what was behind that? Because
Yeah. What do they gain by that, except that maybe you've got a? I mean, were they looking for a fresh look by switching? Like, so Dan going to Epcot, was that going to inject some fresh ideas into the park? I just couldn't see that.
I kind of see it like in baseball, Mike, when you have a player that should be a lot better but isn't performing, and then they trade him to another team, and new place, new faces, and all of a sudden they rediscover that something. I think that was my take on it. Maybe they're looking at this whole reorganization is to,
It could be just to shake them up too and
Yeah.
say, hey, we're moving you around, so you may want to do something about this. That could be it too. I don't know.
But yeah, that to me that was definitely a big story, and it's going to be 18 months, 2 or 3 years before we really see the effects of this change. But there will be effects.
What do you think prompted the change?
I think just a general shakeup. People, have more have skills they may not be using, or the parks really need to go in a slightly different direction than they have been, and new eyeballs looking at old problems might find some different solutions.
Well, it begs the question: what kind of power do they have when they are given that assignment? I mean, what can they do and what can't they do?
Well, yeah. I'm kind of agnostic to that. Some people say that everything flows downhill. So
nice.
And I believe that there's still a balance going on. These people do have power to make certain changes in the park. And having met Dan a number of times, I think he definitely has the Disney spirit behind him. So
yeah, that's right, John. You and I met him at the Flower and Garden press event earlier this year. And I know, talking to him, he seemed like, obviously he was brand new on the job, but he definitely seemed like someone who's big on empowering his staff members, maybe letting his managers take the ball and run with it a little bit, rather than be that grand poobah, who dictates how things go along, kind of like in an Eisner-type fashion.
But at the same time, he was also very focused on being in the parks and seeing what's going on a first-hand basis, which to me is the number one mark of a strong vice president for any of Disney's theme parks.
Absolutely. What else we got there, John? What else are your readers really homing in on?
Well, there's the whole American Idol experience, where you too could be a star.
Really?
Well, I think the real story here, John, and you brought this up in an email we swapped the other day. It's that it has. I think a lot of people expected with the American Idol coming in there that it would become. It would do to the studios what like Nickelodeon does. In terms of like Nickelodeon brings obviously that 6 to 13-year-old status, kind of like it would be a swarm of teenagers is what I'm trying to get at. And it really hasn't quite become, I haven't noticed it's not like there's a swarm of teenagers around American Idol every time I pass by.
No, and certainly if that was going to happen, the summer was going to be the time for that to happen, and no screaming hordes materialized.
So what's your take on that then? What do you think the show's a success?
I think we'll see if one of the golden ticket winners makes it to Hollywood. Yes. Then I think you could say will be a success. But right now, I think the answer is a qualified no. Crowds are not quite materializing, and the buzz just isn't there. Certainly, Toy Story Mania has the buzz and still has the buzz, where American Idol is just kind of...
No pun intended, right, John?
Yeah.
That was great.
Let me play devil's advocate here. Could it be because the season's over and there's not as much interest as there was in, let's say, February, March, April, May, and June?
Could be. I mean, go ahead. John's the guest.
No.
Let him answer.
Okay,
the
John,
show sucks. Let's face it.
Well, I think the other part about American Idol experience is that other than that, what else has Disney introduced this year? Yeah, there's a balloon at Downtown Disney that you have to pay money to go on. But other than that, it's been a pretty quiet year. No shows, no parades.
Yeah.
That to me, that is the biggest story other than the economy. Is Disney is resting on their laurels.
Absolutely.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think all of their capital expansion stuff is going to DCA, right?
It certainly seems that way, where they're really being secretive about what's going on at Walt Disney World.
Yes. Well, with one exception.
Are you
Space Mountain is underway, and
that's true. That's true.
So hopefully we'll get at least a new interesting queue out of that.
Yeah. Okay. They'll be. They're preserving the ride track, though, right?
My understanding is that there's not a big enough construction party there to do more than change the queue experience and update the track. So
yeah.
Seems that way.
So no enhancement to the ride vehicles at all? But the sound,
no
sound system, no new sound system or anything.
I asked if they would be changing the track so it could support a heavier vehicle, and the answer I got was probably not.
Which contradicts Jay Rizzullo when he announced that. Because I was at Soho a couple years ago, he announced that they would be changing everything. There would be a new sound system which would mirror what happened out in Disneyland. They would be calling it Rocking Space Mountain. So what you're saying, John, is everything that Jay Rizzullo said is not coming true. Is that correct?
I would say at Disney, I don't believe anything until the day after I see it. Plans change so often.
Yeah. I think also, I think the key there, Scopa, was what you said, was that it was a couple of years ago, and I think the economy has changed a lot of plans that Disney may have had a couple of years ago. It just seems to me like everything's been put on like someone pulled the e-brake on spending and things like that. It's like, well, let's just clean up Space Mountain, and when we have gobs of money once more, we'll look at other things.
Well, that's not gonna be their priority when they get money. They're gonna look to expand other stuff.
And at least they didn't let it wait until the last minute like they did at Disneyland, where finally it just broke to the point where they couldn't fix it again. So they had to start their update.
Oh, is that really the story behind that?
Yeah. The track actually broke to the point where it would have cost as much money to fix it and get it up running again. So they just put it on mothballs for a couple months until the construction crews were there ready to do the actual labor.
Good to know.
All right, so John, one last story here, and that's gonna, we've kind of looked at what's happened 2008. What's on the horizon, really? What stories do you think is going to be is on your radar for the next couple months left in this year?
Travel forecast. If travel starts picking up, that might open up some of the purse strings we've just been talking about for the projects we've just been talking about. I would say how Disney responds to the recent set of tragedies that occurred at the park with the monorail death and then the two performer deaths. Whether they're going to come out of that stronger than they were going in, what new safety measures we're going to see. So that's what I'm going to be looking for the rest of the year.
Cool. Well, of course, you'll be able to keep track of what's going on at thedisneyblog.com. Check it out, when you get to the office, settling in, and you want to see what's going on in the world, catch up. Great resource. So, John, thanks so much for coming on and talking with us about the year in review so far.
I appreciate it.
All right. And don't forget that you can visit us online at www.wdwtoday.com. For Len Testa, Mike Scopa, Mike Newell, and John Frost, I'm Matt Hochberg. We'll see you on the next show.